Hey, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in to episode 1 of the Fourth String Sports podcast, Lite. Yeah, you heard it, guys. This is the Lite episode. It is the same quality of content, just fewer calories. The reason that we are doing this kind of like mini episode type thing is because we, in doing this show, have consistently come across topics that week in and week out we're like, hey, we want to talk about this, we want to talk about this. And then just because the sports world is a clusterfuck of constant news and changing, we don't get the chance to go as in-depth on it as we want. So this is something that we're going to start doing usually like the day before we record the main episode when we have a topic that we just have really been meaning to cover. So we'll probably do one on baseball here since we haven't really touched on baseball that much.
There's a good reason.
Yeah, there is.
Very good reason.
Yeah. We'll probably do one on a lot of the stuff that's happening, like the mini stories within the NBA right now. We're going to definitely do one on like some of the injuries across the NFL. Stuff like that. They're just topics that we haven't had the chance to cover that we wanted to go a little bit more in depth on. And today we're talking about the Milwaukee Bucks and what they need to do to actually get to a championship, whether it's get to a championship or win to a championship, whatever it might be. There's been a lot of news all around it. So that's going to be our main segment. That's going to be 63 of the 64 calories on this Fourth String Sports Lite episode. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in and for listening. Follow us on everything: Facebook, Twitter, Spotify, SoundCloud, Reddit, YouTube.
MySpace.
And, MySpace, Grindr. We're on Fall Guys now. The whole 9 yards.
OnlyFans.
We should play Fall Guys. OnlyFans. We thank everybody and for not only tuning into this, but also tuning into the main episodes. And on the next main episode that we're going to record tomorrow, we're going to talk about week 1 of the NFL season. We're going to talk about the Clippers getting bounced from the playoffs and the Nuggets coming back from down 3-1, not once, but twice.
I'd just like to say Brady jinxed them. It was Brady's
I
fault.
So did, too.
I
Oh, my God, I did. I was like, there's no way. There's no way.
I would just like to quote before that episode we did it. Hey, guys, we're going to talk about the Western Conference Finals because there's no way the Clippers blow this series, right, guys? And I said, hey, maybe we should wait until the series is final. And you went, no, because there's no way the Clippers are blowing that series.
I did. So, I mean, that's completely on me. If you guys go back and listen to that episode, we talk about who's going to win, Clippers, Lakers, and there's no fucking need for it. And that's completely on me. So I promise that I'm not going to jump the gun like that again.
I can't wait to talk about Nuggets, Lakers.
It's going to be so exciting.
It's going to get fun.
So, yeah, tune into the next main episode on everything. So let's talk about the Milwaukee Bucks. Now, a team that is near and dear to both me and Mitch's heart and a team that Skylar fucking hates because they play in the East against the Celtics. Milwaukee, fastest team to ever clinch a playoff berth, got into the bubble and struggled. 3-5 in the 8 seeding games. But they had already clinched the 1 seed. There was no worry, at least for most Bucks fans. And then game 1 of the first round of the playoffs happens, and they lose. Now, they get a backdoor sweep against the Magic, but myself included,
We're impressed. Fans
didn't think that the Bucks looked like the Bucks, right? And me and Mitch both chalked up game 1 of the first round as well as game 1 of the semis to the same performance the Bucks did in game 1 of the semis last year against the Celtics. Well, they just got popped in the mouth. They're going to get it figured out. Well, then game 2 happens of the semis, and then game 3 happens, and then miraculously game 4 happens, so the Bucks don't get swept, but then game 5 happens. And now the Bucks have to head home, leave the bubble, and watch the Heat and the Celtics play in the conference finals for a shot to go play at the title. So I guess the first question is, what area of the Bucks needs the most improvement, or what is the weakest kind of link on this Bucks team right now?
I think it all stems from the backcourt, to be honest. I mean, Eric Bledsoe, the dude isn't a shooter. He's a great defender and he can drive, but the past 3 playoff seasons, he's been a non-factor, and that's hurt us the most. And, Wesley Matthews, he's all right, but on most teams, he could be a starter, but mostly like a bench piece. And so it's been the weakness for a long time, and getting rid of Malcolm Brogdon hurt it even worse. Like if you flipped it and Bledsoe was gone and Brogdon came in, then I don't think it's that big of an issue. But since Brogdon's gone, we really don't have, a good backcourt. And I think that's what's holding the team back the most at this point, among other things.
I'm going to go consistency at this point. Because consistency, it was just bad. There were times where, like, even we're looking at stars like Chris Middleton, where it was, yeah, he turned it on in the last 3 games of 2-0 series. Like, I'll give him to him. He's the reason they won Game 4. Chris Middleton's the reason they won Game 4. No other ifs, ands, or buts about that. But we're talking about guys like Pat Connaughton, Kyle Korver, Robin Lopez, even DiVincenzo. These guys that are filling this the backcourt need that we can all agree is probably the weakest part of this Bucks team, except for Lopez. Sorry, he's a front court guy.
Yeah.
Like those 3 guys who we all agreed were integral to them making it to the conference finals, beating they all 3 of those guys, TJ included, said that you needed those guys to have a great series in order to beat the Heat, not just offensively but defensively. We're talking about the Bucks team that had 3 guys on the all defensive teams.
Yeah, Giannis on first team and then Bledsoe and Lopez on third team.
Yeah, so like that's a good defensive team right there. And the Heat totally trashed you. And that's because Robin Lopez would shoot stellar the first quarter, and then he wouldn't do anything.
Brooke Lopez.
Yeah,
Brooke Lopez. Sorry, Brooke Lopez would shoot stellar and then not do anything afterward because he was too worried about a mascot running on the court. And then you have DiVincenzo and Pat Connaughton not even looking like they belong on the court with these guys. And you know what? Some of it could be that, because I'll tell you, even though Duncan Robinson had imposter syndrome, one of the best shooters in the league, and he's coming up as a defender. Tyler Hero, young, but he's been playing lights out in the bubble and in the playoffs and the season.
Oh, that's all us.
Yeah. So, like, I'm just saying, it's that consistency that you guys needed both offensively and defensively from those 2 specific, Pat Connaughton, DiVincenzo, wasn't there. Because they would have good games or reasonable games for bench players, and then they would totally fall apart in other parts of a game, of a series, in the bubble in general.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I think that the 2 biggest my thing is I'm going to agree with both of you. To me, the biggest issues with the Bucks are twofold. A, there is 0 backcourt. I think DiVincenzo is coming up. I really do, but I do not think that he is a starting caliber guard on a title contending team, right? I think that his defense is lackluster. He's one of the best slashers in basketball. His 3-point shot was like really good in Game 5 against the Heat, and then it kind of fell off after that first quarter. I thought George Hill played amazing throughout the playoffs. I thought he was really consistent. But yeah, just like Skyler said, Pat Connaughton, a guy who was a huge reason that the Bucks dominated the Celtics, the way that they did in the semis last year, and had a fighting shot against the Raptors the way that they did, disappeared. And I think it was in Game 2 that I sent you guys a message that said Pat Connaughton should not play another minute in playoff basketball because he couldn't hit a shot. He couldn't defend anybody. It was miserable to watch. And then you get one of your best all-around players in Ersan Ilyasova, who isn't going to put up 20 points, but he's going to put up a solid amount of points, rebounds, and assists and play solid enough on defense. The dude barely saw any time in the playoffs. He really only saw time once Giannis got hurt. Like, that was it. So part of that goes to coaching. Part of that goes to a lack of faith in the bench, because the one thing that made the Bucks team so good last year was that when our starters went out, our bench could still keep pace with the other team's starters. And this year, that just wasn't the case in the playoffs.
Well, and as a Nebraska fan, I can speak to the idea of expectations change everything. Where it's like last year, you guys were a scrappy Bucks team that, yeah, you got the 1 seed, but people still counted you out. And that was part of the reason why you went to the Eastern Conference Finals and why you guys did as well as you did. Because after the Celtics beat you in Game 1, popped you in the mouth, they were like, oh, look, we were all right. All it takes is Al Horford down low, and Giannis is nothing.
I mean, like what? Paul Pierce broke out the brooms and shit like that after Game 1.
Yeah, so it was to that point, and how do the Bucks respond to that? They go, no, fuck you. We earned the 1 seed. We're gonna get to you. And if it wasn't for Kawhi, you guys would have been in the finals and most likely would have beaten the Warriors because the Warriors were a shell of themselves at that point.
Oh yeah, injured. I mean, I definitely think that had the Bucks gotten into that finals, they would have won it. And I don't even know if that series would go to 6 against them. Frankly,
it just depends on how injured Kevin Durant. But this season, where it's like Nebraska was ranked in the preseason beforehand, and we fell apart. I mean, we still won more games than we did last year, but nobody wants to remember that because we were ranked 21 in the AP preseason poll, and we just didn't live up to that expectation. And when you have the Bucks going, you guys are the finals favorite, and you get popped in the mouth, it's not, fuck yeah, we earned that 1 seed. We're gonna go on. It's, oh shit, did we earn that 1 seed?
I definitely think that watching this team this year, there was really a lack of motivation. The whole sitting Giannis with minutes thing, I think, was ridiculous. If you're gonna sit your star for the equivalent of a quarter of the game, you need to have absolute faith in your bench to produce, and Budenholzer didn't, and the bench didn't produce. But that kind of moves on to the next thing we're going to talk about here, which is, what is one move, regardless of the salary situation, of the possibility of a trade, regardless of all of it, what is one move that you think would pole vault the Bucks from a title contender to a team that actually makes or possibly wins the NBA Finals?
I think you got to go, at least in my opinion, you got to go with Damian Lillard. We just watched what he did in the playoffs, all by himself. It was Dame time, and then when it came to the Lakers, it kind of fell apart. But imagine him and then having a front court player like, Giannis, which, let's be honest, he really doesn't have that in Portland. I mean, Yusuf is nice, but, he's a center. He can't do a lot of things that, Giannis can do. And to have that, I think those two would be really nice together, and just having that, like, backcourt presence where – if Giannis does go up against that, like, impenetrable wall, he could just shoot it out to Dame, and Dame can make that clutch 3 in the corner or something like that. I think that would be the ideal thing, regardless of cap or whatever.
I'm going to say, I mean, I agree, kind of, but I don't think Dame's going to leave Portland because I don't think it's about the money or the champion.
No, remember, this one isn't. This is
No.
Yeah.
No, I'm just saying that it doesn't make sense to me. That's just where I'm going from. If I'm going bench players, or I'm going front court. So what I'd say is go after that. We've seen a lot of rumors about a CP3 trade. Find a way to make that work. Get CP3 in Milwaukee, because I feel like we could actually make that the State Farm commercial true. He does play for the Bucks. With Oscar, I think that'd be amazing. I would say do that, and then
remember who else is a State Farm rep? Discount double check. I would say go after that. And then Marcus Smart is up this season too. Fuck you, dude.
Get Marcus Smart, make him 6th man, get him to play, because here's the thing. Even if, let's say, CP3 getting older, doesn't play as effectively as he wants, you put Marcus Smart into that lineup, get CP3 some rest. At worst, you're getting an all defensive first team player who can shut down almost 4 positions. He can play defense at 4 positions. He'll even go up against the 5. And about 50-50, he'll at least make it hard for them. So I'd say Marcus Smart, get him in there, because if you get him in there, he doesn't have to start. He does great. And he's also one of the most streaky shooters there are in the NBA. I mean, for God's sakes, he put up 10 points in the first quarter, and I was in game 1, and I went, where the fuck have you been this entire year? Another thing I would say, get somebody else at that 2 or 3 position to help out. I would say if Clippers trying to get rid of Paul, get Paul George. Maybe that will work out for you. See what you can do. If Anthony Davis doesn't get his renew his player's option, see if you can get him, because if you get another big up there, that makes it so much easier for Giannis. Have Giannis run the 5. He can shoot have Giannis run the 5, for God's sakes. Like, have a 5, get a guy that can run the 4 that's young. He's doing good. And for God's sakes, if you're in a win now position, trade your fucking draft picks. Get rid of some of those things. Find a way to use those so that you can get some players, or even trade the fuck up. I don't care. Get some good players. Not in this draft because this draft fucking sucks. Get it in a different draft where it's actually a good deep draft.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things that I would like to see them do. Now, first, again, this is like world's perfect scenario. First would be to sign Marcus Smart, put him at the shooting guard position. Second would be to pick up. I like Chris Paul a lot. I'm not going to say Chris Paul though. I would say going to pick up a guy who we just watched absolutely dominate the Bucks in the series, Goran Dragic. I think that with both of them, who are fantastic defenders, fantastic ball handlers, and also have an innate ability to hit runners and hit three-point shots. Smart, not as much, but I think the production could be there. I think those are two massive pieces. And then I do also agree with you, Skyler. Massive depth on the bench. I think getting a sixth man who can go play anywhere from the 2 position to the 4 position, shooting guard, small forward, power forward, I think that would be great. And there's one guy that comes to mind when I think about a guy who could possibly do all of that. And hold on, I just got to make sure that he's available again because I just had him in his name. The guy who just won Most Improved Player of the Year, Brandon Ingram.
Yeah.
Restricted free agent this upcoming season from the Pelicans. So I would love to see that. And if they sign a restricted free agent like that, there's going to be a tender on him. And if there's a tender on him, that means the Bucks would have to give up a pick. So that kind of 2 birds, 1 stone's there, right? You get a fantastic player who just won Most Improved Player who could line up for you anywhere you want. Hell, you could go and pick up maybe just Dragic, line up Middleton at the 2, put Ingram at the 3, Giannis at the 4, and then Lopez at the 5. That's a championship caliber team right there. That's right there, right? And then you just continue to improve on the bench. Like there's bench guys who are going to be available. Guys like Buddy Hield, guys like JJ Redick, guys like Deion Waiters.
Another thing I would say is see with the Celtics, because I mean, for us, see if you, I would say go after Robert Williams. Because you know what, if you get him, put him at the 5 or put him at the 4, either one, that creates. Then you can run. Because what I'll say is, I'm like, if you get like just a Dragic or somebody that can run the point, anybody that can run the point, and it doesn't have to be Bledsoe. Anybody that can run that point, literally, it doesn't matter. And then get another big in there, not Robert Williams per se, but Robert Williams-esque, where it's a young guy that can develop under Giannis and is already an innate rim protector. Because if you get a rim protector there and you have Giannis also there, then that helps just in general. Because then you're not asking Giannis to just do – because then Giannis doesn't have to make the mistakes that he does like he did in Game 1.
And I think that the Bucks have that in DJ. Well, let me try this again. I think that the Bucks thought they had that in DJ Wilson. Yeah. But he has not developed. And this is where I'm really struggling with the Bucks, because 3 of the 4 teams in their conference finals right now are all pretty much built through the draft, right? The Lakers are not, but the Nuggets don't really have any big free agents on their roster, with the exception of like Paul Millsap, right?
Yeah. He's coming off the bench, isn't he?
Yeah, even though Hayward and Kemba are big, like – for the Celtics, this is still a team that's primarily built through the draft picks of Tatum, Brown, and Smart. And for the Heat, I mean, they've had Dragic for a while, and their only really big free agent was Jimmy Butler. And even then, with Jimmy Butler, it's not like Jimmy Butler is a franchise-changing player.
Yeah.
Right? Like, Philadelphia was still in the playoffs when Jimmy Butler got there. Minnesota still didn't make the playoffs when Jimmy Butler was there.
It's Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson and Bama Adebayo and
Kendrick Nunn. It's player development.
Jay Coward.
You know? Yeah, exactly much. Udonis Haslem, most recent draft pick. But they're all teams that are built through player development. And I thought that the Bucks took a really great step by that in getting a G League team. And then there really hasn't been any player development. Like, we're not seeing that diamond in the coal that you get on some of these other teams. We don't see like the Kendrick Nunn, who's the undrafted player who starts 62 games for the Heat. We're not seeing the the
But
fact
to be
that,
fair, that wasn't a Heat developmental player. That was a Warrior developmental player.
yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right, but still, the Heat found value in him. We're not seeing like the Raptors, who won the championship last year, where not a single player on that team was a lottery pick
Yeah.
player, right? Like we're not seeing that stuff, and that's I think where the Bucks also need to focus, and that's where I'm wary about giving up draft capital. But at the same time, they've got what, the 24th or 27th fucking pick in this upcoming draft. Like it is what it is.
Yeah,
So
question
now,
time.
I don't think
is
it's,
Coach Bud gone?
No, he's staying.
no, yeah, he's.
But I don't think it's the selections. I think it's just the playing time because where was Sterling Brown this playoff series? I mean, he had some nice moments, but he wasn't getting minutes. DJ Wilson didn't get any minutes. You know, you can draft the best player, but if you're not going to play him at all, then of course you're not going to see the next Kendrick Nunn or Tyler Hero or Chris Boucher or something like that.
But I also think that's like the double-edged sword, though, too.
Yeah.
Because here's the reason the Heat hadn't been good for a while. Because they had to put Bam Adebayo in at the 5. And then it wasn't until this year where he was, in my opinion, the guy that should have won Most Improved Player. A guy that could have been into consideration for Defensive Player of the Year. Guy that could have been in consideration for a lot of different awards. Mm-hmm. And it's through that growth of just trial by fire. The Bucks are good enough that they don't need to do that right now. And so it gets to the point where it's like, yeah, we have these really good developmental players, but it's the playoffs. And I can't put these guys in right now because they're still developing. And if they're going up again.
And I think that a great point to that is like first round of the playoffs last year, Bucks played the Pistons. I think won each of those games by north of 20 points, right?
Yeah.
So you could get those guys into meaningful playoff minutes against good competition and they could grow. This year, round 1 against the Magic, I mean, games 2 through 5 were at times nail biters. And the Bucks couldn't really get those young guys in there to get those minutes. But at the same time, they also didn't give Ilyasova any minutes. They didn't give Lopez any minutes. So there's guys who do have playoff experience, who do have valuable NBA experience, who also didn't get playing time. And I think a large part of that goes to Coach Bud. So now let's move on here to what move or moves do we see the Bucks realistically meeting? Now, Giannis had a 3-hour meeting with the owner of the Bucks. They went over kind of all of the players. They went over the Bucks being more willing to get into the luxury tax this year, which was honestly the reason that the Bucks didn't keep Brogdon and Bledsoe was because they didn't want to be in the luxury tax. And now they're willing to get into that. And the other thing to keep in mind is that Giannis, after this next season, is eligible for the Supermax extension. If he signs with the Bucks, it would be a 5-year, I think, $240 million extension. If he signs with any other team in the NBA, the most his contract could be would be a 4-year, I think, like $180 million. So there's a large incentive to stay with Milwaukee in that he would make a ton more money. But what kind of moves do we think realistically, understanding the trade assets that the Bucks have and the team, the identity that they have, do we think the Bucks will make?
First, we got to start, with the hugest rumor that's been going on since, the Bucks came out of the playoffs, is that a potential Chris Paul, trade. And I could definitely see them making this kind of move. I mean, Chris Paul, showed this year that, he still got it. He can bring up a team that, wasn't that great. It wasn't like he was playing the Heat or, the Lakers or something like that. He was playing with a team that really shouldn't have been there. And with you pair him on the Milwaukee Bucks, which, back-to-back best record overall in the NBA, it could make sense. And, they would get rid of the Bledsoe contract, which, they've got to be regretting after what he's produced. Mm-hmm. And getting him would solve the backcourt issue as well. And then after that, they would probably just kind of sign keep making that bench because they said that after the meeting that they want shooting and playmakers for their bench. And so they would probably just go through there and try to get as much people as they can and kind of, just add to that CP3 deal. So I think that's most likely what they could probably go after and and if it's not CP3, I brought up like a Drew Holiday or, a CJ McCollum or a Bradley Beal or something like that.
Somebody
make that kind of
fucking point.
Yeah, exactly. Someone to make that kind of trade for that person, And then with what's left, just go get your playmakers and shooters for your bench that you can rely on when Giannis has to sit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so for me, I'm going to say that immediately, as much as I love Kyle Korver, as much as he's a Nebraska guy, make him find another team. Pat Connaughton, I'm going to say do the same. Make him find another team. Like those guys that are up after this year, take a long, hard look at those guys and see whether or not that you think that they are adding to this team instead of subtracting. Because that's a lot of cap space that you're going to be able to get through that. Immediately find a way to keep Giannis. And I would honestly go to him and go, who do you need?
Mm-hmm.
And then make that happen. So I'm going to say go for CP3 as the first bet because I think that that's attainable for them, especially with the Thunder just apparently finding out that they don't want to continue to win and actually enjoy trying to rebuild again after firing Billy Donovan. Hire Billy Donovan. From that, then I'm going to say make a conceited effort to go after Marcus Smart. I would say that should be your number one free agent of this offseason. Go after Marcus Smart. As much as I'm a Celtics fan, and I'm also telling the Celtics that their number one free agent this year is also Marcus Smart because he should be. That's the conceit. That's the effort you need to make. I would then start shopping around, find somewhere where you can dump Eric Bledsoe for whatever draft picks, some kind of bench players, things like that. Get rid of the dude. And then I don't know, keep a hard look at and then rebuild that bench. Like we said, get some playmakers in there. Look to see if you can get maybe I don't know. I'm trying to think of guys that contracts are up this year. I would say look at teams that are contenders right now and see bench players from them that you could try to find. Maybe if the Lakers stumble, see if Kyle Kuzma's available. Maybe get him in there. Guys that are up and comers. If the Pelicans are willing to get rid of Ingram.
Yeah,
Ingram, see if you can get him. But I would say try to make the CP3 trade work. Get Marcus Smart, and then ask Giannis who he wants and get them.
Yeah, so first on my list is to trade Eric Bledsoe. Now, I don't realistically see the Bucks trading Eric Bledsoe, and the reason is that his contract does not work very well for a trade. I don't see them being able to do that. But let's just say in a perfect world that they do. Then I probably going to get some flack for this, but I would go after the other Oklahoma City point guard. I would try to go after Dennis Schroeder, and there's a couple of reasons. A, younger. B, familiar with Mike Budenholzer. Remember, he started his career in Atlanta, right at kind of the height of that Budenholzer era. C, he's lengthier, which the Bucks love. He's not as good of a defender, but he can hit threes. He brings a ton of energy, and his contract won't hurt the Bucks nearly as bad. And if they do that, then that opens them up for the shooting guard position. And there's a player that I've been so excited to see what he does because nobody talks about him after he got traded. An upcoming shooting guard free agent, Demar Derozan. Nobody talks about Demar Derozan anymore after he got traded to Toronto. But remember, DeMar DeRozan led the Raptors to a 1 seed in the East.
Yeah.
Like, DeMar DeRozan, he can't shoot a three to save his life. Don't get me wrong. But he's still a damn good basketball player.
True.
And I think putting him at the shooting guard position could be marvelous for the Bucks. I think it could absolutely change it up. Because then if you get two guys who could drive, if you get DeRozan and Giannis who can both drive and then have the opportunity to kick it out to Middleton, you know, in this perfect society, Schroeder or Lopez, this team gets really, really difficult to play against. I agree that the bench becomes a massive factor. There's a couple of guys that I think they could sign to help that out. Hassan Whiteside is going to be available after this season. I think that he could be a great kind of backup center. Mitch loves him in order to kind of supplement that. JJ Redick is going to be a free agent after this season. And even if they can't get DeMar DeRozan, I think J.J. Redick would be a great fit to come back to Milwaukee after he was there. Joe Harris is going to be available after this season from the Nets. I think that he's great. And even then, Spencer Dinwiddie is going to be available after the next season. He's got a player option for 2021, so you may be able to trade for Spencer Dinwiddie. There's a ton of backup players, but there's another guy that I kind of wanted to talk about because I thought that he also goes under the radar a lot. The guy who I think could be the most attainable to actually help the Bucks out, Tim Hardaway Jr. from Dallas. He can hit the threes. He's pretty good on defense. He's a great kind of up and down the court player. I've loved him since he was with the Knicks. He was part of that Kristaps trade. I think he's a great player, and I definitely think that he could improve the Bucks in a lot of different ways. And the fact is that you can flip him at the point, you can put him at the shooting guard, and I think that's really where the Bucks need to improve. They need to get out of the center being the center, the point guard being the point guard. They need to be able to change it around. Your point should be able to guard a small forward and a shooting guard also. Your power forward should be able to take on a shooting guard no problem. Like all of that stuff. Yeah, you're seeing that across basketball.
That's what all four of the finals teams do. You have Marcus Smart guarding anywhere from the 1 to the 4. You have Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown guarding all 5 positions. You have, same on the other side. Jimmy Butler, Duncan Robinson, Tyler Hero. Those guys aren't guarding. They're not going 2 against 2, 3 against 3, 4 against 4. They're going. Who am I going after? They use switch offs. They use things like that. That's not something the Bucks do. Bucks play old school basketball.
Yeah, they really do, and I think that some of those moves, just to name a couple, could instantly turn this team. I agree. The backcourt desperately needs help. It needs supplementation through the bench, but it also needs some player who could reliably put up like 15 points, a couple of threes, a couple of rebounds, and assists a game. I would honestly sacrifice defense for offense. I really would, because defensively this team will be fine if they can just figure out how to guard a 3. But offensively this team still has some issues. So that is let's just end it with this question here. So right now, heading into 2021, assuming that the Bucks make no moves, right? Giannis decides to stay and they make no moves. Do the Bucks have a legitimate shot at making the NBA Finals?
Hell no. If nothing changes, no. Because the Heat are now, pretty much the top of the East right now, because I don't see them regressing. The Celtics are on the rise as well. So those two are at the top right now. And even though the Sixers aren't a factor anymore, and, the Raptors are still good, so I think we would just run into the same issues and get beaten the same way. So, no, there's no way we could come out of the East if we do nothing.
Celtics are on the rise. Bitch, we've been in the Eastern Conference Finals 3 out of the last 4 years. We're on top. Fuck you.
No, I mean like a more stable thing.
I'm giving you shit.
Okay.
He's pooping on you, Mitch. Get over it.
I'm going to say yes, because as long as Giannis is there, it's like LeBron. As long as Giannis is there, they're a legit finals team. I will say, though, that teams like the Celtics are going to get better. Teams like the Heat are going to get better. Teams like the Sixers are going to get worse. Brooklyn is getting better with Kyrie and Kevin Durant going to be healthy next year. Toronto will continue to get better. That's 5 teams fighting for that one spot. And one thing the Bucks can't do that the other teams can do is they don't like spending money, what we've seen. And they don't like playing with draft picks.
It also doesn't help that all of those teams that you mentioned are big market, and Milwaukee is the only small market team.
Boston's a small market team.
Kiss my ass, Boston is a small market. Maybe technically Boston is a small market
Boston's
team.
a small market
Maybe
team.
technically Boston is a small market team.
The only reason Boston's not a small market team is because it's one of the most successful sports cities in the country.
So suck a dick. But there's a different, unlike in the NFL where there's joint funds, there is a drastic difference in the NBA between large market and small market.
I'll give you that, but we also said that the reason that they got rid of Brogdon is because they didn't want to go into the luxury tax.
Correct. Yes, you're absolutely right.
Or we're seeing other teams are not afraid of that. I mean, that's how the Golden State Warriors were able to be as dominant and are as dominant as they are because they're not afraid of the luxury tax.
They found their balls last year.
So,
but no, I'll say Milwaukee's still a finals team. But that 1 seed is not guaranteed for them next year.
Yeah, no, I would agree with you. I definitely think that Milwaukee can be a finals team. I mean, if Middleton can play consistently, then he's that second piece, right? But the issue is how consistent play can we get from Middleton? You know that in the playoffs, Giannis is going to get triple teamed. Like, everyone knows that. It's not surprising, right? So the step has to be, what can the rest of the team do? Otherwise, all the Bucks are going to be is early year LeBron with the Cavs, right? They might get there once, but until those surrounding pieces can produce, they're not going to get any further. So that was episode 1 of the Fourth String Sports Lite series.
Spelled L-I-T-E.
Yeah, L-I-T-E. Yeah, duh. Same quality of content with fewer calories. It's also keto friendly. It's gluten free. Dairy free, so everybody's got IBS. This is great. No, fuck that shit. Fuck that. So no, fuck vegans. You eat what I eats.
This is the food.
Yeah, exactly. So we appreciate everybody for tuning in. We're definitely going to have a couple more of these. If you guys have topics that you kind of wish we would have covered but we haven't, send us an email, fourthstringsp@gmail.com, fourthstringsp@gmail.com. We don't plan these as ahead of time as we do the other normal episodes. So but the next one that we'll probably do is actually probably going to be on the return of the Big Ten football. That was announced. We are going to get eight like kind of almost regular season games, and then one more like cross East-West seeding game.
I'm excited about that one.
I'm very excited about.
Man. Well, they did say that they're going to make a conceded effort not to reschedule games, like to not do, so. Like if Nebraska has Rutgers this year, and then for some reason they're matched up, that they're not going to go against Rutgers again. Like they'll try to make it fair.
Can we keep that 9th game? Keep going on. I like that concept.
I love the concept. So that's what we've just now decided between the three of us in this very moment will be our very next mini episode. We will definitely talk about that. We'll definitely give it a shout out on our main episode that we record tomorrow. But we'll go in depth on the next mini episode. On the next episode, we are primarily going to talk about week 1 of the NFL, what things stand out. We're going to give updates on our fantasy league. I think all 3 of us won.
We kicked ass.
Yeah. I won manager of the week, so thank you.
I won assistant to the manager of the week.
Yes. We also got our pick'em. We have a very ugly winner this week, but we won't reveal who that is. If you guys can figure it out, then you can do that. But it's a long season, and there's many points to be made. So
we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, and then we'll also talk about this stunning Western Conference semis where the Nuggets came back. So we've got a massive episode planned for you guys tomorrow. We appreciate everybody for tuning in and listening. Gentlemen, any closing thoughts?
Yes, message to Giannis. Thank you for reaffirming that you're staying in Milwaukee. And then all I want you to do this offseason is work on your free throws. Thank you.
From Skylar to Giannis, please, for the love of God, go to Golden State. I just want to see it happen.
From Brady to Giannis, can you be my dad now that you've got all that money? Because I could use some. No, I'm just kidding. I have more money than I know what to do with. Psych. So we appreciate everybody for tuning in and listening. Thank you so much for listening to the first kind of mini episode of the Fourth String Sports Podcast. This has been episode 1, the Milwaukee Bucks Lite, Lite. Same quality content, fewer calories. Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody, and have a fantastic night.
Bye.